Everyone warned her about him, but he was the only one who cared. The outsider's warning. The orbital research platform Helios drifted silently through the asteroid belt of Proxima Centauri, its gleaming silver hull reflecting the distant starlight. Inside, the corridors buzzed with the usual activity of scientists and engineers going about their daily tasks. Commander Eliza Townsend strode purposefully through the central hub, her footsteps echoing against the polished metal floors. As the recently appointed head of security, Eliza felt the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. The Helios housed over 200 researchers working on cutting-edge technology that could revolutionize interstellar travel. Their work was as dangerous as it was valuable, making security paramount. Commander Townsend, "A moment, please," called Dr. Joanna Richards, the station's chief medical officer. Her normally composed face was tight with concern as she approached. "What is it, doctor?" Eliza asked, noting the unusual tension in the woman's posture. "I've just received word that the Alliance is sending a new consultant to assist with the Dimensional Drive project," Jonah said, lowering her voice. "A man named Nikolai Volkov." Eliza raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't informed of any new personnel transfers." "That's because it wasn't planned. It came directly from Alliance High Command," Jonah replied, her fingers nervously tapping against her datapad. "Eliza, I've worked with Volkov before. He's unpredictable, brilliant, but dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Eliza asked, her security training immediately kicking in. 3 years ago, he was involved in an incident at the Ganymede Research Facility. 5 scientists died when his experimental drive malfunctioned. The official report cleared him of negligence, but Joanna trailed off, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Those who've worked with him say he takes unnecessary risks, prioritizes results over safety protocols." Eliza frowned. Safety protocols weren't suggestions. They were essential, especially when dealing with experimental technology. "Thank you for the warning. I'll keep an eye on him." Throughout the day, similar warnings came from various staff members. Director Haruto Tanaka pulled her aside after the morning briefing, his typically calm demeanor replaced with unusual agitation. "Commander, about this Volkov character," he began, adjusting his glasses. "I've reviewed his papers on quantum displacement. Groundbreaking work, but his methodologies." Haruto shook his head. "Just be careful. The man doesn't believe in limitations." By afternoon, Eliza had heard from 7 different people about Nikolai Volkov. The operations manager described him as a hurricane in human form. The lead physicist warned he was brilliant but reckless. Each warning painted the picture of a man who couldn't be trusted, a potential threat to the station's safety. When the transport shuttle finally docked at 1800 hours, Eliza waited at the airlock, back straight and face professionally neutral despite her misgivings. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and a tall figure emerged. Nikolai Volkov wasn't what she expected. Instead of the wild-eyed maverick the warnings had prepared her for, she saw a man who moved with quiet precision. His dark hair was streaked with premature silver, and deep lines around his eyes suggested someone who had seen too much. He carried only a single duffel bag and a worn leather case that likely contained personal research materials. "Commander Townsend," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent she couldn't quite place. "Thank you for the welcome committee." There was a hint of irony in his tone, suggesting he knew exactly what kind of reception awaited him. "Dr. Volkov," Eliza acknowledged with a nod. "Welcome to Helios. I trust your journey was uneventful." A ghost of a smile crossed his face, as uneventful as traveling through an asteroid field can be. As Eliza escorted him to his assigned quarters, she studied him from the corner of her eye. His movements were measured, his observations of the station keen and assessing. Less like the chaotic force she'd been warned about and more like a chess player calculating several moves ahead. "You've been warned about me," he stated rather than asked as they reached his quarters. It wasn't a question. Eliza saw no point in denying it. "Yes." And what did they tell you? That I'm reckless, dangerous, a liability. His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, but what looked almost like resignation. Something along those lines, she replied evenly. Nikolai nodded slowly. And do you always believe everything you hear, Commander? Before she could respond, an alarm blared through the corridor. Red emergency lights began to flash, and the station's AI announced in its calm, artificial voice. Warning: gravitational anomaly detected in Sector 7. All personnel implement safety protocol Theta immediately. Nikolai's demeanor changed instantly. The casual stance vanished, replaced by alert readiness. Sector A is the dimensional drive testing area, correct? Eliza nodded, already activating her communicator to coordinate with her security team. That shouldn't be possible unless... Nikolai's eyes widened. They've initiated the sequence without proper containment fields. Without waiting for her response, he was already moving, sprinting down the corridor toward the source of the alarm. Against her better judgment, Eliza followed, thinking of all the warnings she'd received about not trusting this man. As they rounded the corner into Sector 7, chaos greeted them. Equipment floated freely in the air, caught in a localized gravitational disturbance. Two researchers were trapped inside, panic evident on their faces as objects swirled around them in increasingly dangerous patterns. The containment field generators need to be manually reset, shouted one of the trapped scientists. Nikolai assessed the situation in seconds. There's a manual override panel on the far wall, but someone needs to get through that. He gestured to the swirling debris. I'll go, Eliza declared, already calculating the safest path through the chaotic vortex. No. Nikolai's voice was firm. The gravitational distortions will intensify before they stabilize. I understand the physics of this better than anyone. Before she could object, he had grabbed a nearby tether cable, secured one end to a fixed point, and wrapped the other around his waist. Dr. Volkov, I cannot authorize. Sometimes, Commander, he interrupted, meeting her gaze directly. Protocols must be broken to save lives. With that, he launched himself into the swirling chaos, navigating the random gravitational pulls with surprising skill. Eliza watched with held breath as he maneuvered through the floating debris, taking calculated risks that somehow brought him closer to the override panel. When a piece of equipment nearly crushed him, he twisted in midair with unexpected agility, pushing off it to propel himself the final distance. His fingers reached the panel, and after a tense moment of reconfiguration, the swirling chaos began to subside. The object slowly returned to normal gravity as the containment field reestablished itself. When it was over, Nikolai floated back to the entrance, his face grim but composed. Your scientists were attempting to generate a dimensional pocket without proper stabilization protocols, he explained as his feet touched the floor. Elementary mistake, but nearly catastrophic. As medical teams arrived to check the shaken researchers, Eliza found herself reassessing the man before her. The warnings hadn't been entirely wrong. Nikolai Volkov had indeed broken protocols and taken risks, but they had missed something crucial. He had done so not with reckless abandon, but with calculated precision, and for the purpose of saving lives. Perhaps, she said finally, you and I should have a proper conversation, Dr. Volkov. His eyes met hers, measuring, assessing. Then he nodded once. Perhaps we should, Commander. And in that moment, despite all the warnings, Eliza felt the first stirring of something unexpected. Curiosity about the truth behind the man everyone feared. Whispers in the void. The aftermath of the Sector 7 incident left the Helios station buzzing with tension. In the officers' mess hall, conversations hushed whenever Eliza entered, only to resume in urgent whispers once she passed. Her decision to work with Nikolai, rather than restrict his access, had made her nearly as controversial as the man himself. You can't seriously trust him, Lieutenant Dominic Wells said during their security briefing the next morning. His normally friendly face was tight with concern. I checked his records further, Volkov was expelled from the Europa Science Academy for unauthorized experiments. Before that, 3 of his research partners mysteriously transferred to remote outposts after working with him. Eliza reviewed the reports on her tablet, frowning. And yet Alliance High Command specifically requested him for this project. Why? Because results matter more than methods to some people, Dominic replied, not bothering to hide his distaste. Just because he saved those scientists yesterday doesn't erase his history. I'm not ignoring his history, Eliza said firmly. But I'm not going to condemn a man based solely on rumors and old reports either. I'll judge Dr. Volkov by his actions here, under my watch. The skepticism on Dominic's face was clear, but he nodded reluctantly. Your call, Commander. Just be careful. Later that day, Eliza found Nikolai in the main laboratory, hunched over complex holographic projections of the dimensional drive. His fingers manipulated the shimmering blue equations with a surgeon's precision, his focus so intense he didn't notice her arrival. The containment field's modulation frequency is off by 0.03%, he muttered, seemingly to himself. No wonder they nearly tore a hole in space-time. Is that what happened yesterday? Eliza asked, causing him to look up. For a moment, surprise flickered across his face before his usual guarded expression returned. Commander, yes, essentially. The team was attempting to generate a pocket dimension as a precursor to the actual drive test, but their calculations failed to account for the quantum resonance between the field generators. Which you spotted immediately, she observed. It's a mistake I've seen before. Something dark passed behind his eyes. At Ganymede. The mention of the facility where 5 scientists had died hung in the air between them. Eliza sensed an opening and took it. What really happened there, Dr. Volkov? He was silent for so long, she thought he might not answer. Finally, he gestured to a chair. You should sit, Commander. It's not a short story. As Eliza took the offered seat, Nikolai collapsed the holographic display and leaned against the workstation. The official report says the dimensional drive I was developing experienced a catastrophic containment failure, resulting in 5 deaths. What it doesn't say is that I had submitted safety concerns 3 times that week, flagging the exact resonance issue that caused the failure. If you warned them, why were you blamed? His laugh was hollow. Because I was overruled by the project director, who had promised results to his superiors. When the system failed exactly as I predicted, it was convenient to paint me as the reckless one who pushed too hard. His eyes met hers directly. The warnings about me aren't entirely false, Commander. I do take risks when necessary. I don't always follow conventional thinking. But I have never put results above lives. Before Eliza could respond, the laboratory door slid open, and Dr. Haruto Tanaka entered, his normally pleasant expression soaring at the sight of their conversation. Commander Townsend, he acknowledged with a curt nod before turning to Nikolai. Dr. Volkov, the team is ready for your input on the dimensional resonance calibrations. Of course, Nikolai replied, straightening. As he followed Tanaka out, he paused beside Eliza. Trust is earned, Commander. I don't expect it immediately, but I hope you'll judge me by what you see, not what you hear. Over the following week, Eliza observed Nikolai closely. What she saw contradicted the warnings in subtle but significant ways. Yes, he challenged conventional approaches, often abruptly dismissing established procedures, but always with precise mathematical reasoning. Yes, he worked alone, often late into the station's artificial night. But she discovered this was because he double-checked everyone else's calculations, quietly correcting errors before they could become problems. Most telling was how the junior scientists began to seek him out despite the senior staff's continued wariness. Nikolai never turned them away, patiently explaining complex concepts and acknowledging good ideas regardless of their source. 13 days after Nikolai's arrival, Eliza was reviewing security footage in her office when an urgent communication came through from Earth Alliance headquarters. Commander Townsend, Admiral Vega's stern face filled the screen. I'm contacting you regarding Dr. Nikolai Volkov. Eliza straightened. Yes, Admiral. We've received concerning reports about his integration with the Helios team. Several senior staff members have filed complaints about his methods and expressed safety concerns. With all due respect, Admiral, Dr. Volkov has been an asset to this station. He prevented a potentially catastrophic incident on his first day and has identified numerous issues in the drive design that could have caused problems later. The Admiral's expression hardened. Commander, you may not be aware of Dr. Volkov's complete history. There are elements of his record that remain classified, such as the real reason the Alliance requested his presence on Helios. The Admiral replied cryptically. Volkov isn't just there to assist with the dimensional drive. He's there because our intelligence division has reason to believe someone on Helios is selling research data to the Centauri Coalition. Eliza felt her breath catch. The Coalition, Earth's main interstellar rival, would pay handsomely for the dimensional drive technology. If successful, it would revolutionize space travel, giving whoever controlled it a decisive strategic advantage. Are you suggesting Dr. Volkov is the spy? She asked carefully. Admiral Vega's hesitation was brief but noticeable. We're suggesting that his presence may force the actual spy to reveal themselves. Dr. Volkov has a particular talent for disrupting established systems. His unorthodox methods tend to expose weaknesses, whether in scientific theories or human networks. Soki's bait, Eliza said flatly, distaste evident in her tone. Does he know this? That's need to know, Commander, the Admiral replied, which was answer enough. Your orders are to continue monitoring Dr. Volkov while remaining alert for unusual data access patterns among your senior staff. After the communication ended, Eliza sat motionless, processing this new information. Had Nikolai been sent to Helios unknowingly as part of some elaborate counterintelligence trap? Or was he fully aware of his role? The warnings about him took on new meaning. Perhaps they weren't about his scientific methods at all, but about his disruptive presence by design. That evening, she found him in the observation dome, a transparent bubble atop the station where the full glory of space was visible in all directions. He stood alone, staring out at the distant stars. Do you ever feel like a piece on someone else's chessboard, Commander? He asked without turning, somehow sensing her presence. Eliza moved to stand beside him, following his gaze to the vast expanse beyond the glass. Increasingly often these days, a smile touched his lips. They told you something about me, haven't they? Something that makes you question everything else. Are you really here to help with the dimensional drive, Dr. Volkov? His eyes remained fixed on the stars. Yes, that part is absolutely true. This technology has been my life's work, despite setbacks. He finally turned to face her. But I suspect that's not all I'm here for. At least not from the Alliance's perspective. And what would their perspective be? That I'm useful precisely because I'm disruptive. Because I ask inconvenient questions and don't respect artificial hierarchies. His gaze was penetrating. Someone on this station doesn't want those questions asked, Commander. The warnings about me started before I even arrived. Doesn't that strike you as peculiar? The realization hit Eliza with sudden clarity. The warnings hadn't just been about Nikolai's reputation. They had been preemptive, an attempt to isolate him before he could disrupt whatever was happening on Helios. Who approached you first with concerns about me? Nikolai asked quietly. Dr. Richards, then Director Tanaka. Eliza replied, the pieces beginning to align in her mind. Nikolai nodded thoughtfully. Interesting. Very interesting. Before he could elaborate, the station's alarm system activated, this time with a different, more urgent tone. The AI's voice echoed through the dome. Critical system failure detected. Dimensional drive containment breach imminent. All personnel evacuate to emergency shelters immediately. Nikolai's expression shifted instantly from contemplative to focused alarm. That's not possible. We weren't scheduled to activate the drive until next week, and even then only at minimal power. As they raced toward the laboratory section, The station lights flickered, and a violent tremor ran through the structure, nearly throwing them off their feet. Someone's deliberately overloaded the system, Nikolai shouted over the alarms. At this stage of development, the only way the drive could reach critical failure is through intentional sabotage. As they rounded the final corner to the lab, they found the security doors sealed, the control panel disabled. The emergency protocols should have left these accessible for damage control, Eliza said, trying to override the lock with her command codes. Unless someone specifically wanted to ensure the drive would fail catastrophically, Nikolai replied grimly. Commander, if that dimensional drive fully destabilizes, it won't just destroy this station. It could create a rupture in space-time that would threaten this entire system. Their eyes met in a moment of perfect understanding. Despite all the warnings, despite the secrets and half-truths between them, one thing was suddenly crystal clear. Whatever game the Alliance was playing, whatever spy they were hunting, none of it would matter if they couldn't stop what was happening behind those doors. I need to get inside that lab, Nikolai said, his voice deadly serious. And I need you to trust me, just this once. Eliza made her decision. Tell me what you need me to do.